So the first song we'd like to offer is written by Swami Ananda. It's one of his children's songs, simply entitled, Life is Beautiful.
Life is beautiful, life is gay, when I give myself away, when I live to please thee, Lord, dancing in thy ray. Let me see thee everywhere, hear thy melodies in the air, let me feel thy strength in me, give me joy to share. Life is beautiful, life is gay, when I give myself away, when I live to please thee, Lord, dancing in thy ray. Let me see thee everywhere, hear thy melodies in the air, let me feel thy strength in me, give me joy to share. Let me feel thy strength in me, give me joy to share.
Our readings are taken from Rays of the One Light, the weekly commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Ananda. This week is Ego, Friend or Foe? Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. Jesus Christ begins his Beatitudes with the words, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." To be poor in spirit in such a way as to merit the kingdom of heaven doesn't mean to be poor-spirited. Rather, it means to see oneself as owning nothing, since all belongs to God. For all is a manifestation of his consciousness. St. John of the Cross wrote, "If you would own everything, seek to own nothing." That which the ego relinquishes, offering it up to soul consciousness, is reclaimed forever in cosmic consciousness. Nothing is ever lost. Paramahansa Yogananda tells the story and autobiography of a yogi of the levitating saint, Baduri Mahashaya. "Master," said a disciple of this saint once, ardently, "you are wonderful. You have renounced riches and comforts to seek God and teach us wisdom." It was well known that Baduri Mahashaya had forsaken great family wealth in his early childhood, when single-mindedly he entered the yogic path. "You are reversing the case." The saint's face held mild rebuke. "I have left a few paltry rupees, a few petty pleasures for a cosmic empire of endless bliss. How then have I denied myself anything? I know the joy of sharing the treasure. Is that a sacrifice? The short-sighted worldly folk are verily the real renunciates. They relinquish an unparalleled divine possession for a poor handful of earthly toys." The Bhagavad Gita, in the 3rd chapter, states, "All things are everywhere by nature wrought in interaction of the qualities. The fool, cheated by self, thinks, this I did and that I wrought. But thou strong-armed prince, a better lessoned mind, knowing the play of visible things within the world of sense and how the qualities must qualify, standeth aloof even from his acts." Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Oh.
Good morning. I had an amazing night last night. I, for the past 6 years, have been going to the Pacific Youth Choir Fall Retreat, and the Pacific Youth Choir is a fantastic choir that my daughter has been involved in for these past 6 or 7 years. And at this retreat, they gather all of the high school singers, so there were about 84 high school singers, all gathered together and asked them, what do you enjoy most about Pacific Youth Choir that you don't get in your normal schools or you don't get in a church choir. And the answers ranged from the musical excellence to the contact with professionals to a feeling of non-competition to a feeling of support and friendship. And the amazing thing is that we're able to, with this group, talk about the spiritual aspects of music, that universal aspect of music that goes beyond any dogmatic belief of any religion, because there are people from all walks of life that gather together to sing. And so as I led them in meditation, I asked them to focus on the words, some words that propelled them into this path of music. Why were they sacrificing a perfectly good weekend to come and be a part of this? And taking those into meditation and then infusing those words into one single note. So they were all gathered around in this room, all scattered about, and then singing one pure note with that essence of that word. And then following that, allowing them to do an improvisation, a vocal improvisation, where all the voices just stayed in this one key, but they rose and they fell and they created these beautiful, beautiful tapestries of texture and sound. And when we gathered back together, you could tell it was a different choir, because they're able to touch something that lies beyond the ego. The ego is everything that compares. The ego is everything that competes. And I remember as I was growing up playing the cello, I was caught in my ego for years and decades. It wasn't until I was 30 that I said, okay, enough of this. I'm tired of this. I can't deal with it anymore. And the fact that we have these egos to deal with is a blessing and a curse. I remember as I started meditating, and I remember I was going down to an orchestra concert with one of my friends, and we were talking about these philosophical things, and I said, yeah, I really want to just get rid of the ego. That's what I'm doing today. I'm just getting rid of the ego. Little did I know that that was not an easy thing to do. Of course, we are all here with our egos, and we can say, park your ego at the door and just come in this way, but yet there is still that lingering essence no matter what we do. However, we can refine the ego, and I remember Swami Kriyananda giving this talk in Palo Alto many, many years ago, and I just heard them distinctly say these words to this audience, and perhaps it was specific for this audience, I'm not sure, but he said these words precisely of, you can't get rid of the ego, you can only refine it. And that was the ultimately important word, refine. And so it becomes a question is, how do we refine the ego? And this week's reading gives us these practical tips of how to do this. In the Bhagavad Gita, stand aloof from your acts. And I remember as a kid, mowing our huge, I don't know, acre and a half lawn. And after I was done, I felt good. I felt like, and that was my motivation to mow the lawn, was to have that feeling of satisfaction of like, yes, I did this. And it took care of everything of like dealing with the motor and dealing with the junked up grass that would get underneath. And I knew that afterwards I could look out there and just have that sense of feeling good about it. But then I wonder what happened after a few years that feeling went away. I was like, well, how do I get that back? How do I get that feeling of goodness back? So, of course, the ego is never, ever satisfied. It's always looking for that new conquest, that new better thing, that new bigger thing that will give us this. And I in my 20s, I was searching for that which would give me that ultimate fulfillment, because that's what I knew how to do. And I was raised as a Presbyterian. My dad's a Presbyterian pastor, so you would think that I would know a little bit of the wisdom that would have come from this, but no, I must have missed that catechism class. And I was talking with the kids last night about this aspect of feeling in music, and it's how we need to be talking in this day and age. And I was talking with one of the other conductors who also had a equally vigorous musical training. It was like it was all technique, and that is what music was all about. And now the great artists have that sense of nobility, that they have that sense of otherness that enables them to convey feeling, that enables them to step out of the way, but not in our training where we given a way to sidestep the ego. And I remember the insecurities that plagued me. I was lucky enough to go to a school that had excellent musical training and a feeling of family, but yet this feeling of family, you would be like, oh yeah, you're my buddy, and then you'd be backstabbing them by talking with other people. And truly the words of Sri Yukteswar of some people like to cut off the heads of others to make themselves appear taller. And that is a unfortunate aspect of the critical mind, because discrimination is one thing, and the ego loves to do this, and it's a good thing to have, but to judge and to compare wrongly is something that we, of course, want to avoid. Well, tell that to a music major who is, learning of how to take a look at their playing and look at all the wrong things, and how not to take that skill and that mindset and turn it on somebody else, because that's just what the mind likes to do. And then, of course, when you start judging the other people, then those who live by the sword die by the sword. And I remember this horrible experience that I had when I was performing a solo with the orchestra. And this voice in my head, you don't deserve to be up here. Who do you think you are? You should just step out of this chair and give the other person the right to do this, because they're going to definitely play better than you. I bet you're going to play this next note wrong. Ha! I told you so. It was like this the whole entire time. It was the worst musical experience of my life. I went home and I started typing on my computer, what is this? Why is this happening? I had just started to meditate, of course. And those words, those who live by the sword die by the sword, came immediately to me, and I said, aha. And so I had to take a look at this, and I had to change my friends, I had to change my attitude, I had to change my life. So things, thankfully, got better. So for those of you who have inner critics, it is possible to get beyond them. So coming back to this aspect of ego, friend, or foe, and the Beatitudes, it's one of the most ridiculously hard things to work out in the mind. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So Jesus didn't say poor. It would have been easier if he did, because he said meek, and he said peacemakers and everything else. But poor in spirit, he couldn't, you wonder if you could invite him here to say poor in ego, because that would make a lot more sense to me, at least. Because poor in spirit can be like, oh, I'm just, I'm spiritually poor. Or somebody who's rich could say, well, I'm spiritually poor, but look at my Jaguar. And so he leaves us in a bit of a quandary, and you just have to wonder, did Monty Python have the right idea when they said, what they did in the life of Brian, blessed are the cheesemakers? Did somebody mishear Jesus in that tiny little bit, and that's what gets passed on to us? That's what happens with things over time. But the most important thing is the kingdom of heaven. And that is what we're talking about. It doesn't matter how you define the words that come before it, if you know what he's talking about, of the kingdom of heaven. And it's not something that, just go through this life and you'll be promised the kingdom of heaven afterwards. He's talking about experiencing it now. And I bet those of you who are in this room know what that kingdom of heaven is. You have experienced something in your life that in that moment you wouldn't care if you were rich or you're poor. Perhaps you even forgot what your outward circumstances were. And I remember the first time that I had one of those experiences, it just drew me into this place of incredible upliftment, and I just sobbed, because that recognition of, yes, this is mine, and how could I have ever doubted that this exists, this kingdom of heaven? And it didn't speak to me, it didn't have words. but its presence was so illuminating and just drew me into this place where I really wouldn't care how much money I had in the bank or what kind of a car I was driving, because in that moment, I was completely and utterly fulfilled. Thinking back in my 20s, looking for that fulfillment in sense pleasures or drinking or just getting enough money or the fame, none of those can hold a candle. And that story of Baduri Mahashaya is so true. This well-meaning person saying, "Oh, you're so blessed because you gave up all these things." And he turns to him with mild rebuke in his face. You have to wonder what that looks like, mild rebuke on his face, and says, "Are you kidding? This is more important, more valuable than a few paltry rupees and a few sense pleasures." There's other people out there who are going for what the ego is looking for. They are the true renunciates because they're giving up what is most important. So what I'd like you to do for a minute is close your eyes and bring to mind that experience that you had that perhaps gave you a sense, a glimmer, a taste of the kingdom of heaven. And nobody can define what that is for you. It's something that you have to feel for yourself. And in these next few breaths, allow that idea, that memory to come alive. With every breath, let it resonate more and more completely within you. Relaxing your breath, relaxing your mind. Using your breath to draw that experience ever more deeply in you. Feeling into your bones and your muscles and your mind and your heart and your soul and your energy. Now, there's another aspect that we can talk about, which is that when we're working with the ego, Madhavi, my wife, is a nutritional coach, and one of the things that she will tell you is that if you go on a diet, it's not to necessarily take things out, it's to add things in. When we're working with the ego, one of the most difficult things you can do is say, "Ego, get out of here," because it puts up more of a fight that way. And I'll ask you to think of those times when you experience that glimmer of the kingdom of heaven. Your ego was naturally quiet. The ego naturally becomes humble when it can recognize something greater. And that's the secret. It's not to humiliate yourself or to say, "Oh, I'm not worthy," because false humility, again, is a sign of ego. It is, you do not get out of the trap that way. I remember the first years that I was conducting, I'm still working on this, when after the concert, everybody would be applauding, and the choir would be applauding me, and I'd be like, "Oh, I don't like this, I want to run away." And I did not like that, all that energy, all that attention, because of the fear that it would go to my ego, and then I would be caught, and everything would go downhill from there. But what I've learned how to do is to allow that energy to pass through me and not get stuck in the ego. You'll see performers kind of throw your head back. "Oh, yes, thank you, thank you." It's like they're taking all of that adulation and putting it right there and locking it in for that ego to hold on and to savor that experience. So the flow of energy has to go both ways. It has to go through you without ego, and it has to be, again, received without ego as well. But getting back to that point of what to do to allow the ego a chance to see something greater. And that, for me, one of the things that I'm working on this month is light. I'm writing a series of articles on my website about how to amplify the light within, how to shine your light, 10 ways in 30 days. And the first that I wrote about is open the blinds, to let in more ambient light into your life. And a lot of us go through life just very closed off, whether it's in your heart, whether it's in your mindset, just like closed off, trying to feel safe, trying to feel secure. And we all know that it's not possible to have that sense of security. We have to open up. And I remember the image of being a teenager in bed and somebody yanking the windows open, that this blinding light streaming is like, no, just let me sleep. And how many of us are sometimes like that in our lives? Just hold off, just maybe tomorrow, just let me sleep. Because that light calls us. It's a challenge to live more in that light, to be a channel for that light. So that's the first thing we can do, is let more light into your life. And you can use it literally with this beautiful September sun that we have. We can use it metaphorically with just that vibration of light. So take a minute now and just to imagine, with your eyes closed, light coming into your body with every breath, infusing every cell of your being, your eyes, your heart, your mind, your body, with that sense of light, that sense of energy, clearing out all the clutter, to reflect and to amplify within you. And the next is plugging into your source. We all have a divine source that we work with. And one of those ways that you can do is obviously prayer. Prayer is one of those that we can use to work with the ego, to ask for the blessings of the masters of God to come in and to be present in our life, to be a light in the darkness, which is the relative darkness of our egos. And then finding that source of light. And I have this image of a three-pronged plug. And the three prongs for me are willpower, using your willpower to plug your lamp in. I love the Rabindranath Tagore poem and chant, "Light the Lamp of Thy Love," because it talks about asking for the divine to come in and to light us up from the inside. So using willpower, how we just can't be passive in this. We have to use that dynamic willpower. And this is where we can use the ego to our advantage. We have to engage those tools that we have. And we can't just be like, oh, no, I don't have any ego. We have to use that sense of power, that sense of dynamic energy to draw us into that access of light. And the other is devotion, being able to have that sense of open-hearted devotion, that sense of feeling, that sense of love, to be able to draw that electricity, that sense of light in. And the last is receptivity, being able to be receptive, to be able to draw in that which will help us to rise above the ego and to transmute the ego. Nothing is ever lost, and it is our job to work with the ego in such a way as to refine it, because we can't. The days are gone of just wearing the sackcloths and saying, I'm not worthy, I'm not worthy. We have to use our intelligence. We have to use our devotion. We have to use our community. And God bless each and every one of you for being here. And I was kind of a little frustrated that I didn't get the lucky draw of having last week, because who are true Christians? My gosh. When I first came here, I finally found my lifelong quest of looking for the true Christians. It's those who are giving themselves in a life of searching for God in any way that they can, wherever they can, with that deep sincerity. You all are here in this place not because you have nothing better to do, or not because it's socially acceptable to go to a church. This is not an easy place to be in. It's not an easy path to follow. When you're working with your ego as earnestly as we are, it is not an easy thing to do. So I want to thank you for being examples of true Christians, because it truly helps to be surrounded by that inspiration. And you see those who have been practicing this for 50 years. If you were able to see any of the talks from the 50th celebration at the village this summer, you see the light of these people who are so relaxed in themselves. Yes, they still have, they admit to still having egos and going through that which the egos must go through of purification and tests and trials. But yet the light that shines from them is so exquisite and is so magnetic that it truly inspires. So I'd like to close with a reading from Whispers from Eternity. Speaking of light and speaking of lamps. This is number 178. Heal my nerves and install in me new ones, resonant with thy joy. When thou camest, I smiled in my soul cottage by the little brook of life. O mystic electrician, the many-tinted bulbs of unawakened happiness, long dependent on my nerve-clogged senses, refused to scintillate with light. For the nerve wires had been torn and shaken by high winds of outward involvement. O thou silent physician of illness, heal my tattered nerves, restorer of shining currents in our lives, resurrect all the dead nerve wires, not only in me, but in people everywhere. Breathe into their bodies an unleashed flow of power, that all the unlit, bare-wired, and dangling bulbs of their senses may suddenly shine again with thy blazing glory. I am but the bulb. Thou art the holy energy that can animate it. Thou art indeed both bulb and light. Help all men to realize this miracle. Om, peace. Amen. Let's have a moment of silence. For this next piece, I'll be doing something completely new. Master says to do something new every day. So I'm doing something that I've never done before. I am going to sing and play at the same time. Now, normally you see this in, people playing piano, people playing guitar all the time, but with the problem with the cello is that it is not a fixed pitched instrument. So when I'm playing, my ears are listening to my fingers and adjusting them, and then I'm also listening to my voice. So if I hear something clash, my brain says, which one is it? I don't know. So it's been quite a week, but I'm eager to share and be an example of doing something new every day. So this piece is, and I'll need the microphone, thank you. Thy Will Be Done from Swami Kriyananda's oratorio, Christ Lives. And it's speaking to that sense of self-offering that is truly the final purification for the ego, of seeing everything that we do as an offering to God. Thy will be done. All that I am is thine. all that I am. Nothing of man endures wonder or scorn. Birth, life, and death are one, veils of thy love. Thy will, thy will, thy will alone. All that I've done is thine. All that I've done.
Hello, everybody. There is a plethora of announcements. This is a lot of information for this month. The September at Ananda sheet is out at the front desk. Please do pick one up because we have things going on almost on a daily basis this month. It's so much excitement and so much joy to share with everyone. I'll just mention a few highlights. Starting this week, on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, we'll have a drop-in meditation. This is from 5:30 to 6:30. This will be happening on a weekly basis, open to the community. So we're hoping to be a light in the community for everyone who is in search of solace and rest and a deeper connection, which we all need, especially now. Tuesday begins the new Raja Yoga series, 13 weeks. A lot of folks are signing up. If you have taken it before, do come back. It's great to recharge your Raja Yoga experience. We have drop-in yoga also on Tuesday with Melissa at 6 o'clock. Starting Wednesday, there will be a book study on Asha's book, Swami Kriyananda Lightbearer. I will be facilitating that, and just so you know, we've received 10 more copies of the book. They're out at the front. They are $25 unsigned. And if you are coming, the assignment for this first one will be to read Asha's note and the foreword written by Narayani and Shurjo. That will be discussed this week. Looking ahead, Thursday night, we have the Swami Kriyananda Discipleship Anniversary event here at 7 o'clock till 8:30. Next Saturday, we have yoga with Lori. And Saturday also, in the morning, there's been a change of time for Byasa's yoga class. It will be starting at 10:45 and not 11 o'clock. Looking ahead, we have the Living Wisdom School Garage and Boutique Sale on Saturday the 21st, Ananda House Seva Day on the 21st. We have a Kriya weekend coming up at the end of the month. Lots of other things, just too numerous to mention. And if you're new or newer, I will be having a newcomers table in the Clarity Room, where we will also have refreshments. So stop by, ask questions, introduce yourself, say hello, and we will be glad to greet you and meet you. Thank you.